Welcome to This Explainer. We are looking at a pretty wild ride today. How exactly does a pioneer of massive digital landscapes become a symbol for, well, corporate repetition? Today, we're breaking down the completely unlikely origins, the huge technological breakthroughs, and the eventual public backlash of a gaming titan, Ubisoft.
So picture this. The year is 1986. Now, you might expect the origins of a huge tech and gaming empire to begin in, a Silicon Valley garage or some bustling metropolis, right? Well, not here. 5 brothers, the Guillemot family, living in a tiny French village, made the wild decision to pivot their traditional family farming business entirely into the world of computer importing. I mean, it is just an incredibly unlikely starting point for a company that would one day build some of the most complex digital worlds on Earth.
To put just how wild these origins are into perspective, let's compare them to Nintendo for a second. Nintendo famously started as a playing card company all the way back in 1889. Both of these massive gaming entities have origins totally removed from the digital worlds they construct today. It just goes to show you that in the gaming industry, your starting point rarely dictates your final destination.
All right, let's look at the landscape back then. In the 1980s, gaming was defined by bitter console wars and the rapid rise of third-party licensing. And the Guillemot brothers, they quickly realized that simply acting as a middleman and importing games just wasn't going to be enough to survive. To capture real value in such a volatile market, they had to pivot to actually creating games. They needed to make that huge leap from being a distributor to a true creator.
Which brings us to our first major era, finding a mascot and the rise of Rayman.
To battle the family-friendly dominance of Nintendo and Sony, Ubisoft realized early on that they really needed their own icon to establish their brand. So enter the Rayman strategy. Following paths carved by Mario and Spyro the Dragon, they chased mass-market appeal, and honestly, they absolutely nailed it. Rayman wasn't just some cute face, it was an absolute technical marvel of the 2D era that proved to the entire industry that Ubisoft possessed some serious creative firepower.
But things were about to get way bigger. Let's move into the 3D open-world revolution.
You see, Ubisoft's true ascension was defined by pushing hardware to its absolute limit. Think of it like Insomniac Games' famous no-fog engine that allowed for those sprawling environments. For Ubisoft, this leap was the Assassin's Creed engine. Actually, scratch that, it wasn't just an iterative update, it was a massive breakthrough in game design. It laid the structural foundation for the dense digital cities they're known for today. Without this technological breakthrough, those sweeping historical landscapes we all know and love simply wouldn't have been possible.
And within those sprawling worlds, Ubisoft introduced a pioneering game mechanic, the Ubisoft Tower. Now, scaling a high vantage point to reveal chunks of the surrounding map sounds pretty standard to us now, right? But at the time, oh man, it changed how players interacted with digital space entirely. It was literally as revolutionary for open-world design as the MMC3 chip was for Super Mario Bros. 3, a total game changer.
Up next, things get tense. Let's talk about corporate warfare and the Vivendi siege.
Because behind the scenes of these beautiful virtual worlds they were building, a very real battle was brewing. We're talking about a high-stakes, multi-billion-dollar hostile takeover attempt by fellow media giant Vivendi. Just as Capcom fiercely guarded its independence to avoid damaging special relationships, the Guillemot brothers had to fight off this massive siege just to keep control of the very empire they built.
And let's be clear, this wasn't some minor corporate skirmish or a friendly merger. No way. The sheer financial scale of this hostile takeover attempt was staggering. The multi-billion-dollar stakes mirrored the absolute intensity of Microsoft's massive gamble to enter the console wars. For Ubisoft, it was quite literally do or die.
Well, they survived. But that brings us to our next chapter, the factor, the fall and the fatigue. So they miraculously survived Vivendi, maintaining their independence. But the very formula that built their global empire soon triggered a massive public backlash. The shift in sentiment was practically whiplash. It really mirrored the disastrous public fallout of the initial Xbox One reveal, or, the incredibly frustrating launch of Games for Windows Live. When the gaming public turns on a concept, man, the momentum shifts fast.
The once revolutionary Ubisoft Tower formula began to feel, unintuitive, and buggy. It resulted in a literal collective groan from the gaming public. Players simply grew tired of the exact same open-world tropes year after year, game after game. What was once super innovative had become this rigid, exhausted checklist of chores.
Which leads us to our final question. Reclaiming the throne, what actually comes next for them?
Through a frustrating lack of innovation and consecutive corporate missteps, Ubisoft practically handed its crown right over to its rivals. Their monumental challenge now is finding a happy medium. They have to balance those familiar mechanics that sell millions of copies with genuinely fresh innovation. It's a real tightrope walk, very similar to what Masahiro Sakurai achieved with Smash Bros. 4. Ultimately, they have to evolve without losing their core identity.
So, what does this all mean? Can this French farming village-turned-gaming empire adapt, innovate, and reclaim its throne at the very top of the industry? Or, as the public sentiment kind of suggests right now, has the novelty permanently worn off for their open-world formula? Let Ubisoft's wild journey serve as a reminder of just how fast the digital world changes. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today.